Differences to the side and talking about something we all love.
In our old man river, lavish lakes and streams, pines full of the wildest life and possibility. I said one Mississippi, there's a magnolia tree.
It's SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to Super Talk Outdoors, where we come to you every single Monday at lunchtime to celebrate the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. Because as I say every week, Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi Radio Network, or on Super Talk TV at C Spire TV, or you might be watching the show on YouTube or Facebook or listening on your favorite podcast. It's July the 24th, 2023. Hey, by the way, as I say each week, the views on this show are mine, not those of the foundation. When it comes to outdoors and outdoors issues, you can count on me to say what needs to be said, and I'm honored to be in this position. Listen, hunting season is just around the corner as we all start to get in the mode of cutting trails, making new food plots, cutting and spraying the ones we have. We're ordering seeds and fertilizer. We're planting crops for ducks and starting to work on the duck holes. It's that time of year, man. It's hot and sweaty, and it's part of the process we all love so much. I mean, for people who thinks it's just about actually going on the hunt, that's just icing on the cake. The other fun happens in the lead up to all of that. But anyway, you know, it's interesting that we're in that mode of hunting mode, but then the offshore fishing and backwater fishing of coastal Mississippi and the lake and river fishing across this great state is as good as it gets right now. So I want to just say that such is the life of outdoorsmen and women in Mississippi. Hey, listen, you're going to hear me update you regularly about what's happening within the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission. The work those 5 men are doing is incredibly important. I've been recently concerned about a third change they made regarding the department's chronic wasting disease plan, and they did so without discussion or public involvement. I've talked about those in past shows. One other issue my team and I have been watching very closely is this. Remember that the commission is a 5-member team that is appointed by the governor. One member of the commission, Leonard Bentz's term, ran out at the end of June. I have several sources who have told me a number of people had expressed concerns about Bentz's term on the commission to Governor Reeves, with the hope that the governor would take this opportunity to appoint someone else. And I'm going to remind you, Bentz is the commission member who introduced a resolution asking for an attorney general's opinion on the commission's authority to set around legalizing the sale and transfer of whitetail deer in Mississippi. Attorney General Lynn Fitch issued an opinion. It was like 10 months later, reversing the previous very strong and excellent opinion from Attorney General Jim Hood. What that did is enable the commission to consider a resolution making the sale and transfer of whitetail deer legal in the state. So that was more than a year ago. Why hasn't a resolution been considered up to this point, you might be wondering? Sources close to me tell me that the very few deer breeders in the state who seek to become deer kings, as I call them, know they don't yet have the votes on the commission. They need 3 votes. The same sources tell me that there are 2 members of the current commission who would vote yes to the sale and transfer of deer. One of those votes is Leonard Bentz. Bentz has actually established himself on the commission as sort of an outspoken anti-biologist commission member. He also knows one of the key issues standing in the way of the sale and transfer of deer issue is chronic wasting disease, and the serious concerns most outdoorsmen and women have that legalizing the sale and transfer of deer inside the state could aid to the spread of chronic wasting disease, just as it has in other states. So in spite of the cloud over Leonard Bentz, we learned at the last commission meeting, in fact, that the governor did reappoint him. That makes me wonder about the political pressure coming from deer breeders, given what we know about those who had concerns about Bentz. Did deer breeders have a role in his reappointment? One thing's for sure, based on what we know, it will take one additional member of the commission to signal he will vote for this, and we're going to see a resolution presented to the commission. Or If that needed third vote doesn't surface from the existing commission, we should watch very closely when the next appointment to the commission occurs. All of this is in the governor's hands. We are one vote on the commission away from a disaster. Frankly, we've got to get this out of the commission's hand. I think the way to do that, of course, and the best way to put it to bed, is to pass legislation closing the door on the sale and transfer of whitetail deer in Mississippi. 2 bills were killed this last legislative session that would have done just that, but political pressure from the deer breeders killed those bills. It's time to ramp up a new bill. In future shows, I'm going to remind you why legalizing the sale and transfer of deer is a serious deviation from the conservation model that has made Mississippi the conservation leader and its relationship to chronic wasting disease. Every expert I talked to on the matter says CWD could be the single biggest threat to whitetail deer hunting in America. Okay, with that said, let's shift gears. I want to move over to my dear friend, Cuz Strickland, someone I really enjoy spending time with. He's been on SuperTalk Outdoors many times, and we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. But anyway, before we go any further, I just want to say, how you doing, Cuz?
I'm doing great, man. When you get my age, every day upright's a plus. Getting plenty of rain on my corn, life is good.
You know, I watched you. Listen, I follow you closely on social media. I watched you when you planted your corn, and then I saw a picture of you standing next to your corn the other day, and man, it has done well.
It's I made a post where some of it's 8 feet tall or taller, and because people keep up with me, I'm not the greatest farmer in the world, and I posted that picture and said I'd rather be lucky than good, but all the stars lined up. You know, I did a soil test and I did everything right and added what I needed. Then as soon as I planted, it rained, and then it rained 3 days later, and it rained again. That's all a God thing, but it's the best corn I've ever had.
Well, you know, we've tried some planting at some of our farms that don't have irrigation, and we haven't had the best luck.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm assuming you don't have irrigation.
Lord, no. 2 years ago, I didn't plant it last year. I went on strike because fertilizer was so expensive. But 2 years ago, I had a pretty good crop coming up, and I have it in 2 spots, and I checked the first spot all the time. It's close to the house. And I found a few army worms, and I was like, wow. So I sprayed the edges on. And about 2 weeks later, I went down to the other spot, and it looked like I was raising cane poles. The army worms just annihilated it. I didn't know they would climb like that. So I got a guy, one of the biologists at Mississippi State, and learned about army worms.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 different kinds. And yeah, but this year, it's all good.
Yeah. So I've been in the business of actually, you know, managing 3 farms for hunting purposes for about 6 years now. This would be the 7th year. And we haven't had any army worms yet, but we've been really lucky. And because I know the story well, and when they move in, it can devastate food plots. Hey, listen, I mentioned to you before the show started, we're going to talk in just a minute about this Legends hunt that people can buy as a result of the foundation raffle that's underway. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. But listen, Cuz, your Fistful of Dirt podcast continues to intrigue me because you cover such a wide variety of guests. It's sort of a down home kind of good old boy approach to looking at the world. But I told you when we were off the air that the last podcast you did where you did not have a guest except for your daughter, and you talked about how the people that you've come in contact with, how they've influenced you and how you've learned from them, and how there's something special about people who are successful. That was one of the most powerful podcasts I've listened to.
Well, that's humbling coming from you, I can promise you, but that was not designed to be a podcast. I started to do an opening for the 2 Weeks Away podcast, and I just started talking about that. They'd asked me to be the keynote speaker at this Legends Hall of Fame of the Outdoors thing, and I got to write down some of the people that had been inducted that I had been around, and I started talking, and first thing Lauren looked at me and she's like, "You've been talking for 45 minutes. That's a podcast." I went, "I don't know about that." But if it inspires anybody, because those great people, hey, have a lot in common. I mean, there's nothing different that you did early in your career is stick-to-itiveness, relentlessness, treating people like you want to be treated. Those qualities just kind of run the gamut, and it just kind of all that kind of came to me. And I guess I talk too much. I'm not sure, but you're very kind to say that. And it was a podcast. It's still up right now. So.
But you know what's interesting, and we'll come back to this on the other side after the break. But one of the things that's so interesting is that you try to cover a lot about hunting and our love of the outdoors and all, but you also try to inject some life lessons because, as you and I have talked about in past shows, you have a great following of young people, and the opportunity for them to learn from you, learn from your experience is pretty dramatic, and that's what I call leaving a legacy. Hey, listen, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Cuz Strickland from Mossy Oak. We'll see you after this.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend Cuz Strickland. I just enjoy spending time with him. I had the opportunity recently to be on his show, A Fistful of Dirt. If you haven't downloaded that podcast and you're an outdoorsman or woman, you need to do it. You'll enjoy the wide range of conversations that they have. And Cuz, again, the opportunity to leave a legacy for young people, that's one of the things that you and I talked about when I was on your show. You are really performing well when you look at the numbers with young people who are coming to your show. And that creates a sense of responsibility, doesn't it, my friend?
It does. And, you know, I have a unique perspective because I raised kids and I'm helping raise grandkids. And I kind of see we don't live in the same world we did when I was a teenager. It's a different message, but I have found that they are hungry for good advice. And buddy, let me tell you something, young people can decipher really quick whether you're trying to sell them something or you're being sincere. And I take that to heart. And if I can help them in any way, shape, or form with clarity and some good old knowledge, that's fine. I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. And I think I've told you this, but I was at the NWTF and this kid, he couldn't have been 12, 13, came up and said, "Mr. Cuz, I love your podcast." I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I love the stories because I ain't got any yet." And I almost started crying. I was like, people listen. And once you put it out there, it's out there. So you got to think about being careful. So.
I got a note once from a group of guys who work in a factory up in North Mississippi who, you know, if you guys are listening to this now, thank you so much for listening. But they get around their radio on Mondays at lunch and they eat lunch and listen to this show. And I thought, wow, that's the people I want to reach, man. I want to talk to those people. And that's what it's all about. Well, listen, we've talked on this show many times about the foundation raffle that's coming up. People can win a $50,000 Ford voucher. They can win an African safari, an Argentina dove hunt, an ultimate outdoor package. But one of the really special things they can win is a turkey legends hunt with Cuz Strickland and Preston Pittman. And, you know, first I'd like to just say, Cuz, thank you so much for continuing to sort of lend your energy to others. I follow you closely, buddy. I know what you do to give back. You have made a gigantic commitment back to the community, haven't you?
Well, you know, it's humbling to be relevant. And I learned they auctioned off a turkey hunt with me at the NWTF one time. Of course, this is post TV and all that. And it went for a crazy amount of money. And I looked at my wife and I was like, you got to be kidding. She said, "No, people like to hunt with you." And I've always taken that to heart. And if I can help raise money for the foundation or the NWTF or NDA, I've done all those. It's humbling but I learned how to be a good host from my mom. I tell the young guys all the time, if you're going to invite somebody, you got to be the host. You can't control the weather or the deer or the turkeys, but you can control the food and the atmosphere and the fun. And so it don't matter if it's a free hunt that was somebody auction off. What I treat everybody the same and try to be a little entertaining, and it works out. You know, if they want to pay for that, that's fine. I'll tell you something about that hunt, and this is hard to believe because we grew up together in the same era as turkey hunt. I've never hunted with Preston Pittman, so I'm kind of the big winner on that deal. Plus, I know where we're going. It is a fantastic place. And Preston hunts a little different from me. He's way more patient. He's very deadly. But I talked to him on the phone the other day, and I said, look, I'm coming. We'll take this person together, but I'm going to film, and I'll just be the journalist. You do your thing. And he's like, no. So it's going to be fun. I can promise you that.
Well, listen, the best way to tell people how to get your ticket is just go to Google and Google Mississippi Foundation Raffle. That's all you have to do. Just Google that. And what will come up is a site where you can buy your ticket. And you have until the end of July, the end of the day, July 30th, to get your ticket, and then the drawing will happen in early August. But this is sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity to have so many opportunities to hunt really around the world, and this special hunt that you'll have with Cuz Strickland and Preston Pittman. Interesting that you just said that, Cuz, that you guys, knowing both of your histories, that you've never had this opportunity to hunt together. Whoever wins that one, that's going to be special, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, he's quite, Mississippi is very well known in that turkey hunt around. Toxie, Will Primos, me, Preston, whoever it is. But it's like he knows how to walk the talk, and he's so good. I knew him back in the contest days. That people don't realize how good he was in that contest calling stuff. First time I ever saw Preston, he came into a big turkey calling event. He had a foot locker like you were taking to college. Had hair down to his shoulders and a safari hat. I was like, who is that weirdo? He opened that thing. He had his calls out. And when I heard him in that contest, I was like, wow. My jaw dropped, and I was immediately drawn to it, trying to get calling tips. He's a talented fellow.
Yeah, he's definitely the real deal. So also the Ag and Expo. Outdoor Expo is coming up this weekend, July 28th through the 30th. I'm hoping to try to be there Friday, walk around and get to know people, see people. But that's also huge. It's great to have Ag and outdoors together. You'll see Ag and then you'll see outdoors, but rarely you see Ag and outdoors together. And they've really refined this and made it something special. And we look forward to participating in that. Anything else to say on either one of those issues, Cuz?
No, I'm going to miss the event Friday. There's a big fundraiser in Meridian for the Folds of Honor. Going to that. And then I've got to leave to go to San Diego. My best friend in the world, one of them, his son has made it all the way through SEAL training, and he's graduating. And I got invited to witness that. And I wouldn't miss that for the world. But I apologize for not being at the expo because, ag and hunting go together. Those people they're all the same.
Well, I leased 3 farms in the Mississippi Delta, and the Dunn family, who I leased land from, Travis Dunn and his brother Clinton and their dad Dwight, their granddaddy, some of the amazing people. And I see when hunters and farmers work together, what we can do to enhance the land, improve the hunting. That's what makes the world go around. So having these two events side by side where you can see what's happening on the cutting edge of farm equipment, et cetera, just a great opportunity. And again, when you go, you're not only learning and getting to see so much cool stuff, but you're also giving back to the foundation that is helping with conservation, investing in conservation across the state in very significant ways. So, hey, you heard what I said at the beginning. It's a hot time of the year to be out working, but that's just part of the fun, isn't it, my friend?
It is. I don't know if you follow golf. I recorded the British Open yesterday when they interviewed Brian Harmon, a little 5'7" guy. They asked him, what was his plans when he got here. He said he was going to hug his kids and hug his wife, put his phone down and get on his tractor and go to his deer club. And I was like, how cool is that? I mean, I would have really been rooting for him, but he's a big bow hunter and all that. So that was pretty cool. You don't expect to hear that.
I know. Actually, I saw a post by T-Bone where he apparently is good friends with him. So, Harmon's, it seems to me respected in the outdoors community. But to see this dude he took it all the way, man. He came out the first day and blew everybody away. I watched it closely. Incredible to see that, isn't it?
It is. And I was pulling for him just because he don't have a lot of wins. He's been out there a long time. He's a little left-handed guy. And he said, one of the fans out there said something to him like at the end of the day too, that he didn't have what it took to see this through to the end, and he ended up closing it like a champion. I mean, he just built his lead. But to hear him talk about bow hunting and getting on tractors, I was like, you're kidding. That was awesome.
Hey, listen, my buddy Travis, my farmer friend and good friend, just period, and my best friend in the world, Terry Waldrop, who's fished together forever with me, and his son-in-law Logan were out doing some work on duck holes over the weekend. And Logan is in the CBs here at the Naval Construction Battalion Center in Gulfport, and will soon he just did a deployment in Poland, and he's about to head to South Korea. He's going to get to enjoy some of the hunting season. But when you go out and work in the outdoors with someone like Logan and see how capable he is, especially as a CB, and to know that mid hunting season he's going to have to go to South Korea to help protect our country. Boy, that's just another reminder that the military community and what they do for us. Good Lord, man, this is the greatest nation in the world, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was at the National Wild Turkey Federation banquet in Columbus last week, and that's put on by the guys over at Apex. And first thing they did was recognize the veterans and played the national anthem. And it's like, man, I'm proud to be here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man, what a moment that is. Hey, Cuz, listen, I always enjoy spending time with you. We'll get you back. I want to get you and Lauren back, and maybe even your wife, and do a show about raising kids in the social media world. I really want to plan that. So we'll get with Cammie and we'll get that done. But it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you for all you do, Ricky. You work hard. You're a great voice, and I'm honored. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Hey, when we come back, we have William McKinley going to join me. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Cuz Strickland. He's become a terrific friend, and we're lucky to have outdoor ambassadors like Cuz in this state. Now let's shift gears and move over to my friend William McKinley, who's the Deer Program Coordinator for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And, we were chatting before the show started. There's a lot going on in the deer community these days. But first of all, let me just say, how you doing, my friend William?
I'm doing well, Ricky. It's good to be on the show again. And yes, you're right. There's a lot happening in the world of the whitetail deer right now.
So let's talk. I mean, so you've had the opportunity to attend a couple of meetings recently. We've had this incredible heat wave over the nation right now. We had some big cold last year. What's the deer world saying these days?
So, the outlook on the deer herd is things are going to be a little down in body weight and antler this year. Stressors. The climate, the ultra cold we had back in December, it knocked out a lot of vegetation. Our spring herd health check showed that overall body condition was below average, and that was from the coast to the Tennessee line and from Alabama to the Delta, all the way across. So, and now this heat, it makes them eat less, Ricky. They eat less to try to stay cool, and thus they're not putting in quite as much protein, and it causes them to lose weight.
Hey, one of the things I noted was that I didn't realize that the really, really, really cold temperatures we had last winter would actually have an impact on white acorns. Talk to me more about that.
Well, in mid-March, we had a really cold winter. Then it got really warm in February. And the oaks kind of went into high gear and started blooming across most of the state. And then I live in Choctaw County. Up here in North Central, it was 19 degrees, and I think it was around mid-March. And that just wilted those oaks. It killed all the leaves, it killed all the blooms, and that white oak crop, that was the white oak crop for this year in most of the state. And they bloom, set their acorn, and drop it the same year. Red oaks bloom, set the acorn, drop it the next year. They're going to have a crop this year.
Yeah. Hey, listen, one thing about managing deer herds for antler growth is that we're all sort of buying into that. But part of what goes with that is that we're not taking out enough does. So the deer population, my guess is deer population is doing pretty good in Mississippi right now.
You know, Ricky, we do what's called population reconstruction, where we go back and look at how many deer from our survey we harvested. Those numbers are suggesting that Mississippi is at or near an all-time record high in deer population over the past 3 years. And we need hunters to take more deer. Deer cause a lot of problems, you know, when they get too many. You had mentioned the farmers and how integral that relationship is. Well, you know, deer cause a lot of damage to farming operations too. And that pits us kind of in the middle sometimes. And so we need hunters' help to, as I've told a lot of them, if I can just get you to harvest one more deer this year and get a lot of hunters to do that, we're on the road to getting this herd in really good shape. It's great right now, but they wouldn't be stressed quite as bad if it wasn't quite so many of them this year.
One of the farms that we will hunt on this year, we've got to take about 20 does off. And it's been hard. There's only a small number of us. So we're talking now bringing friends and family and early season, doing whatever we got to do to get in there and get those 20 deer off. Another farm we've got to get 15 off of. But, you know, it's just, you know, you just got to make it part of the deal. we got to take them out, because you won't do it if you don't go out there legitimately to do it.
Hey, use that 12-day early primitive doe only season. You don't have to worry about waiting on a buck because he's not legal anyway. Use that season and get some does off. That's why we created that season. So in early November.
You and I in past shows have talked about the cycle of hemorrhagic disease, the blue tongue disease, and the important role that the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks has in managing all diseases, especially blue tongue and CWD, chronic wasting disease. But what's the latest on blue tongue?
So, you know, it's a cyclic disease. It's caused by a virus, and the little gnats that start biting you in late summer, the little no-see-ums, they're called midges. They're what transmit it. It's typically every 3 to 5 years, and we're now 6 years with real low occurrence. And it's typically a really bad year about every 15 years. And bottom lines, we're due. Now, that midge likes to breed on receding mud. So think of a pond when it's evaporating, it's really hot and it's not raining. The water line there is where they breed. So droughty, hot conditions. Ricky, I looked at the forecast this morning. It's like 100, 100, 100, 99, 99, and no rain. And the typical high point of the disease is early August. The table is set for this. So I just urge hunters to be cautious. If you smell something dead, I found them that way. We want those reports. We want, if people start finding those deer, we want that. Our biologists want that. You know, that's our job as a deer program. We collect data, we analyze that data, and then we put forth recommendations out to the hunters out there and to policymakers to use. So,
listen, as it relates to chronic wasting disease, the industry, the deer management industry, you know, the conservation biologists that exist in each of the states and those who care deeply about this subject have really done a good job of sharing all of their data and information around this really incredible disease that is deadly 100% of the time. But you recently went to Denver. What did you learn at that conference?
Oh, Ricky, it was a 3-day meeting, and myself and the assistant deer coordinator, Cayman Campbell, went there, and it was people from all over Canada, North America, Scandinavia region, and state, federal, tribal, and local. A lot of the captive deer industry was represented there. It pulled all of those parts together. And we learned so much about the disease. A segment of the disease, almost a third, was devoted to the potential likelihood that this disease would jump into humans. that's a scary thing. We pray that it never happens. There's no confirmed case at this point, but the disease is going into other animals like voles, raccoons, pigs. It has shown to go into spider monkeys and macaques, another type of monkey with very long incubation of 5 to 13 years. That's what the potential's out there. We recommend people get your deer tested. We got places all over the state. We're working with over 60 taxidermists. We got 60 drop-off freezers. There's a place near a hunter to get his deer tested. Now, what we learned on the deer aspect, we know. A lot of studies out there showing this disease. It's already in 31 states, detected in 31. Florida Panhandle found it just a few weeks ago and made the announcement. Their first one, have implemented their plan. Holmes County, Florida, right off the Alabama line down there. But the disease is having impacts. You know, it's been, I've heard a lot of people say, well, the West has had this disease since the 60s, and they still got a lot of deer and elk. Well, yeah, they do, but in herds that have high prevalence, they're actually seeing declining herds now in mule deer and elk and whitetail with the absence of hunting. That's not good. So let's go closer to home. Let's go to West Virginia and let's go to Arkansas. Both have large-scale radio collared studies. They're putting these collars on the deer. There are live tests out there. They're not USDA approved, but they're fairly accurate. And they're taking it's actually a piece of the rectal mucosa lining. Now, Ricky, that's not something a deer stands still for. So they're having to drug the deer and put it down, and it's tranquilized. They have a wildlife vet on scene. They're taking a sample of that deer, and it gives them an idea if that deer's positive or not. In Arkansas, 17% of the mortalities of these deer is just CWD. In West Virginia, 38% is. West Virginia has a little bit higher prevalence in their core area. And this is disturbing because as wildlife biologists, as the deer program, you know, the season and bag limits and such are set so that we harvest a surplus of deer. Meaning, let's say that property you talked about has 100 deer on it that you got, and that's, you need to kill about 20 does to keep it level. That would be about what I would have recommended if we did a camera survey and you had about 100 deer. I would say you need to kill about 20 deer, about a fifth to 1/4 of the total population. What happens if CWD kills 20% of that population? And you keep hunting deer, and that's what's happening when prevalence gets high. But you take these other states that are taking aggressive measures like Illinois and Missouri that take aggressive measures where the disease is, right where the disease is found, but the key there is finding it. They're keeping prevalences down to 2% or less. So it versus a Wisconsin or a West Virginia at 60%.
So let's do, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue this conversation. But unfortunately, really one of the main tools we have to keep prevalence down is containment. Containment is a major tool. And that's why the CWD plans are so incredibly important. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with William McKinley, head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks right here in Mississippi. We'll see you after this.
Breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. When we went to break, we were talking about the notion of the importance of having sort of a centralized approach to managing the various diseases that the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks faces, like blue tongue, for example, which we unfortunately expect to have some real issues with this year. and chronic wasting disease, which is always fatal, unfortunately. And but the reality is that we've learned from what William just said is that those states that have been very aggressive with their containment strategies, with their CWD planning around containment, have had really good results. And as we learned from I guess it was Arkansas and West Virginia, is that the two that had the collars?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, 17% death rate and 38% related to CWD. Whoo, those are some big numbers. That's scary numbers.
Scary numbers.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where we left off. The containment part of this, though, is hugely important, isn't it?
It is, and we know that, deer roam, and that's why we set CWD management zones out there. We're trying to reduce as much concentration as possible. We'll never, I'm not going to say never, we can't stop the disease from spreading, but if we can find it early and hunters are aware that it's there and they remove more deer right where it is, then we're able to reduce that prevalence down and keep it low like these other states are doing. And one of the tools we're using with that, Ricky, is called a 3-mile tag. And we offer these tags. Our commission allowed this a few years back. And if you have land within 3 miles of a positive, you can apply for and receive either sex tags to use a gun during archery season. Now, some folks might get upset at that, but CWD management, the very best way to keep CWD from spreading is to remove a positive deer before that deer spreads it to another deer. The best place to find a positive deer is where you already found a positive deer, not 15, 20, 30 miles away. You go to the source and it's you fight it right there, but you got to find it early to do that. So that's one of our goals and we're getting a lot of samples. I was at a meeting last week in South Carolina with all the deer leaders from the Southeast, called the Cervid Working Group meeting. We believe that iron sharpens iron. We get together on a couple of times a year. We share about this and about CWD and about a lot of other topics deer related. But we're able to put forth the knowledge we've got there and learn from each other on this disease.
And there's a lot of sharing going on. I mean, one of the things that made me a better CEO is that I never felt like we arrived. We were always trying to find the cutting edge and find the best practices. And the way to do that is to go to industry meetings and share experience and share successes and share failures. That makes you better. Mm-hmm. And when you have biologists from around North America and beyond coming together and talking about their experiences and the growing amount of data that suggests that we've got to get smarter about how we manage CWD, it makes it easier for you guys when you sort of have someone who is an anti-biologist point of view, someone who just is saying CWD has always been here, it's always going to be here, and let it just be survival of the fittest. It makes it easier, or at least better for you, to have the data to sort of counteract that, doesn't it?
Well, I say again, our job as a deer program has always been, since our agency was formed and a deer program was formed, to collect data, to analyze that data, and to make conclusions from that data and make recommendations. That is our job. So, and we do that with blue tongue. We do it with knowing that our herd health checks said that deer were in a little less body condition, poor body condition because of weather. All of that is taken into account when we give a recommendation, and CWD is taken into account when we give a recommendation. So,
but what's interesting though, again, data is important. I ran businesses based on data. What gets measured gets done. So if you look at the work that was done in Arkansas and West Virginia, and you balance that against the work that was done in Illinois and Missouri, you draw conclusions about that. Once you're confident that the data sets are something you can draw conclusions from, it makes a very, very compelling case for why Mississippi has to keep our eye on this ball. And God forbid CWD ever transfers to a human. That would be.
Yeah, we pray that never happens, and we leave it there for folks a lot smarter than me, some of those folks at that meeting, I rank as one of the dumbest men in that room in Denver, Ricky. So it was people from all over there giving presentations, but I learned so much from that meeting. I certainly appreciate our agency allowing me to go.
Hey, well, listen, we don't have time to talk about it, but the September Velvet Antler season, September 15th and 17th, archery only, private lands only, legal buck only, special licenses required. We did pretty good last year with 369 harvested deer. Very popular. I think my son Jordan actually plans to go do that himself. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. We need to get together more often, my friend.
We surely do. Let's talk soon.
Yes, for sure. This has been William McKinley, who's head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and one of the most dedicated professionals I talk to. I talk to dedicated professionals almost every day in that department. God, we're lucky to have them. God bless you guys. Stay safe in the outdoors, and we will see you next Monday.